Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm 15, and I've been with my cute, sweet, animal-loving boyfriend, Chris, for almost 2 years, not including the 2 weeks we had broken up. Before we dive into that drama, go ahead and push that bell to subscribe so that your partner doesn't break up with you. And click that thumbs up to be double sure. All right, well, I guess I should start by mentioning that Chris and I have known each other since middle school. He was my friend back when I didn't really have any other friends. He's almost 1 year older than me, but we've always been in the same grade, and he's always had my back. While the summer before high school, I bloomed, as my mom would say. And when Chris and I got to high school together, I started to get noticed by more than just him. I got more friends. And more and more. What I'm trying to say is I became pretty popular and, well, irresistible. I'd never felt irresistible before. My whole life, it's like I had been completely invisible, even with my own family. But all of a sudden, here I was, the center of attention to the whole 9th grade. I enjoyed it, but it didn't really get to my head. That is, until Joseph noticed me too. I have had a crush on Joseph since the first day of the 1st grade. I don't think he ever even knew my name, but suddenly he was finding ways to sit next to me in science class and asking if I wanted to sit next to him at lunch. Chris and I didn't have lunch together, so I figured it was pretty harmless. And it was. Until one day, Joseph put his arm around me. My heart fluttered a mile a minute. I was in total heaven. So much so that for a moment, I completely forgot about Chris. And when I did snap out of it, I politely reminded Joseph that I have a boyfriend and asked him to take his arm off of me. He did, and then he whispered in my ear, "Maybe we can do that somewhere else, somewhere more private." Oh, man. I didn't even know what to say. My cheeks blushed, and I'm pretty sure I even started to sweat. I was excited and nervous and nodded my head yes, and then excused myself to the bathroom. Once I got to the empty bathroom, I jumped up and down and looked in the mirror and screamed a silent scream of excitement. I had never felt so alive in my life. I felt my phone vibrate, and it was Joseph asking where I was and if now was a good time for that privacy. Oh my gosh. Before I even knew it, I was texting him to come find me, hinting to where I was. Well, I'll save all of those details for another time, but let me just say we kissed. And it felt so good until I got back to class. While I was sitting in my math class, daydreaming about Joseph kissing me, Chris texted me, "I heard you have a new boyfriend. We're done." Suddenly, my feelings of being on top of the world sank into complete despair. I may have just ruined my relationship with my perfect boyfriend of 2 years. Our relationship may not feel as exciting as what I felt with Joseph, but I love Chris so much. My heart was breaking. I ran out of class and into the bathroom. The same bathroom where I had just cheated. I looked into the same mirror where I had just been so excited but was looking at a totally different reflection. No excited scream, just tears in my eyes and total panic all over my face. I'll never get Chris back now, I thought. But then something in me totally shifted. No, I thought, I will get Chris back. I have to. We're meant to be together, and I can't lose him. I refuse. I pulled myself together, marched back to class, and plotted my brilliant, foolproof 10-step plan to get Chris back. I knew it was gold and that there was no time to waste. I implemented step 1 as soon as I got back to my desk. That is, I publicly professed my sincere, undying love for him all over social media. I wanted him and everyone else to know that I totally, shamelessly loved him. The next day when I saw Chris in the hall, I tried to talk to him, but he just rolled his eyes at me and walked away. And right behind him was Joseph, who gave me a very similar look. "Nice posts," he said, and walked away. Ugh, I was so annoyed. Why did I ever let him ruin this for me? Suddenly, I had a flash of our kiss, and my heart started pounding in my chest again. Oh yeah, that's why, I thought. No, snap out of it. Okay, on to step 2. Begging forgiveness. I slipped "I'm sorry" notes in Chris's locker and left them on his car. I called and left voicemails. I even ordered him pizza for his usual guys' night with a special note that said, "Please forgive me." I knew that wouldn't be enough to get him back, but I had to make sure he knew that I was sorry and that I wasn't giving up easily. The next step was very important because I knew if it went wrong, I could lose him forever. Just like that. So step 3, sabotage any new prospects. The next day at school, I saw Chris with another girl in the hall, little Miss Cindy Smith. She and Chris had always been friends too, but they had always kept a good, respectful distance. But now they seemed pretty close, way closer than I'd ever seen him with anyone other than me. So that day, I decided to pull her aside in gym class. Seeming genuinely concerned, I shared the fact that he has IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. I even explicitly shared the time when he lost control and went number 2 in his pants during one of our movie dates. Just to warn her. I knew by the look on her face that she had totally lost interest then and there. Now that Chris was feeling a little confused and vulnerable, now that Cindy was totally ignoring him, it was time to implement step 4, making sure he heard me turn down other guys. I asked one of the guys in my class to help out by pretending to ask me out in the hall when Chris was walking by. He agreed, and we made a plan for in-between periods. In the hall after class, we waited to see Chris. Finally, there he was, walking our way. We quickly acted like we were talking, and when I knew Chris was within earshot, the guy recited his lines perfectly. I replied loud and clear so that Chris could hear me. "My heart belongs to only one. I'm sorry. I can't go out with you." I saw Chris peeking over from the corner of his eye. Yes! On to the next. Step 5. Find a way to get alone with him. Just enough to sneak in some reminiscing. Knowing that Chris wants to be a vet someday and loves animals, I knew he couldn't turn down helping an animal in need. So, one day after school, I texted him and asked him to take a look at my dog, explaining that it was urgent as she hadn't eaten in days. He replied that he was on his way, but only for my dog, not for me. "Of course," I replied. When he got to my house, he went straight to my dog, who was, of course, acting completely normal. After examining her, he told me he couldn't find anything wrong, and I acted amazed when he got her to eat. Wow, you've always had a way with animals, just like with that stray cat we found last year, remember? I couldn't get her to come to me, but somehow you coaxed her right over. "Oh yeah, I do remember that," he said. He was already starting to soften, just a little bit. "Yeah, and then remember she threw up in the backseat of your mom's brand new car on the way to the animal shelter?" I asked, knowing this would get him going. He chuckled and even replied with one of our inside jokes. For a minute, things almost felt normal. Then he snapped out of it and said he had to go and that he was glad my dog seemed to be doing better. I was feeling better already. I knew my plan was working and that it was only a matter of time before he and I were back to how we used to be. That night, I laid in bed thinking about Chris, fantasizing holding hands and spending time like we always had. I fell asleep and even had a dream about us being the perfect couple again, as if nothing had ever happened. I woke up the next morning with a pit in my stomach, knowing that the dream still wasn't true. But I quickly shifted gears, knowing that I was halfway there. While getting ready for school, I planned out step 6, buttering him up. I knew that by now he had dropped his guard just enough. So as a thank you for helping me with my dog, I bought him 2 tickets to a movie I knew he would want to see. When I gave him the tickets, I told him that he could of course take whoever he wanted. Now, if anyone knows Chris, it's me. And I know he's too nice and polite not to ask me to go with him, especially not after our time together last night. Well, sure enough, after school, he texted me and asked if I wanted to join him at the theater that night. Woohoo! I was so excited. Wow, I hadn't felt this excited since Joseph. Suddenly, I had another flash of my kiss with Joseph, and it felt like electricity was running through my body. I shook it off and quickly got back to celebrating this triumph with Chris. I needed to stay focused and get ready for step 7, playing coy and having the let's be friends talk. There was no way I wasn't going to get him back now. That night at the movie theater, I acted shy and almost timid. did. I knew that if I came off as confident as I actually was about the situation, I would blow the whole thing. When we met up outside of the theater, I kept a slight distance and awkwardly waved hello. Already, it was working, and he timidly opened his arm for a side hug. Score! That loosened us both up, and we both relaxed a bit, hanging out and talking like old friends. We got to the counter for snacks, and I even ordered for him, his favorite. This gave us both a little giggle. My world was feeling right again, and at that moment, I realized just how wrong it had felt since we'd broken up. Once the movie let out, we had our usual conversation, discussing our favorite parts. While he shared his, I kind of spaced out, no longer hearing what he was saying. I was loving the way he always got so excited while talking about something he was passionate about, and the way he waved his arms around to express himself. Even the way his lips moved while he was talking. I really had missed him. Jasmine, did you hear anything I just said? He asked. Oh, I'm so sorry. Now was my opportunity to have the talk. I took a deep breath and found my cool. I was actually just thinking about how nice it is to be hanging out again. I had to play the part. I looked down at my feet, playing nervous and unsure. I was wondering if we could be friends? I peeked up at him and he had his cute little half smile. He sighed. Yeah, I guess being friends would be okay. It worked, I thought. I wanted so badly to jump up and hug him. Stay cool, I reminded myself. Just then, my mom arrived to pick me up. Well, see you later, friend, I said. He waved goodbye. I was feeling great. With only 3 simple steps to go, I knew it was just a matter of time. The next step would be perhaps the most challenging, but I knew I couldn't skip it. Step 8, acting like a true friend. I knew this would include talking to him about other girls, which could be tough to hear, but I also knew it would mean I had the upper hand in case I needed to revisit step 3, sabotage any new prospects. Plus, even just having him thinking romantically around me could help to draw him back in. So the next week at school, I casually met up with him at his locker before classes started. Hey, how was your weekend? I asked. Good, pretty chill, he said. It felt like he was being short, and for a minute, I felt my confidence waver. Cool, did you see anyone special? I asked. He looked over at me, kind of suspicious. What do you mean? He asked. Good, he was going for the bait. Did you hang out with anyone special? I don't know, a girl? We're friends, remember? We can talk about these things. He looked a little uncertain, so I said, but obviously, if it makes you feel uncomfortable. No, he said. Sorry, I was just thrown a little off guard. Yeah, well, kind of. He sounded uneasy. I hung out with one of my neighbors. She just moved into town. I don't know, it's new. I hated hearing this. I felt so jealous. Every cell in my being wanted to get angry and scream at him, but I knew that wouldn't help. I knew it, I said, acting excited for him. Is she pretty? He looked at me a little confused. So you're actually comfortable talking about this? Yeah, I said. Friends, remember? I care about you, no matter what. I guess that was enough to disarm him completely because after that moment, it was like the floodgates opened. He was telling me all about this girl, which led into everything he had been up to since we broke up. And that even led to us talking about how we both felt after the whole Joseph drama. By the time classes were starting, we were both almost in tears and parted with a big hug. I had a feeling I didn't have to worry about his new neighbor anymore. That had worked better than I could have even planned, and I went to class with a totally full heart, which made me a little sad about the next step, and even questioned if I should go through with it. But I knew if I wanted him back, it was necessary. And I did. I wanted him back so badly, and I was so close to the finish line. So right then and there, I implemented step 9. Back off and let him come to me. Now that we had bonded and at such an intense and unexpected level, I knew that withdrawing from him would lead him to the chase. So I did. I didn't act cold or disinterested. I just stopped reaching out. When I saw Chris in the halls, I would still smile and wave, but would keep it moving. Even when he called, I would answer and even express that I was excited he was calling, but tell him that I was pretty busy. Let's talk a little later, I would say, excitedly. but I would never be the one to call back. Instead, I would wait for him, and inevitably, he always called. I didn't want to rush this process, so I let things go along like this for almost a whole week. And before I knew it, he was calling after school every day. I had him exactly where I wanted him. It had all worked out so well that I almost started to feel bad that I had manipulated the whole situation. Was this how I wanted our relationship to start again? With lies and deception? Never mind that. I can't think that way. The most important thing is that we get back together, no matter what it takes. Love will make you do crazy things. So I pushed forward with a final phase. Step 10. Have the I really missed this talk. Now that Chris and I had been talking and even hanging out regularly, with him still initiating, I asked him out to lunch over the weekend. And to no surprise, he accepted my invitation. We met up at one of our old favorite hangout spots for some grilled cheese, just like we used to when we were still dating. Things started off just as friends. We were talking and laughing, totally absorbed in one another's company. We had just finished laughing so hard that our sides hurt, reminiscing on a trip we had taken the previous summer. Chris had lost his swim shorts trying to body surf in the ocean while I had been sunbathing. He yelled out for me to bring him a towel, and I playfully pretended that I couldn't hear him, signaling for him to come join me on the beach. He eventually had no choice. We were both in absolute tears thinking back to this moment. I knew it was the right time. I looked over at him and caught his gaze, suddenly very serious. Still wiping his tears of laughter away, he asked, "What's with a serious face?" "Chris," I said, "I really missed this." He took a pause before replying. "So did I, Jasmine." Suddenly very serious as well. I looked down at my hands, waiting for him to make the next move. Right on cue, he walked around the table and sat down next to me. He grabbed my hand and said, "Jasmine, I've been thinking, and I don't like being apart. I love you so much, and if you can promise me you won't cheat again, I think we can work through this. I'd like to get back together." With new tears in my eyes, I nodded and said, "I promise. I love you so much, and I'm so sorry. I want to be your girlfriend again." Then he leaned in for a kiss. We hugged and held one another for a while. I was so happy. This was all I wanted. Suddenly, my world was complete again. My 10-step method had worked, and I felt at total ease. I would never compromise our relationship ever again. The next day at school, it felt like we had never even broken up. We were holding hands in the hall, passing notes back and forth, and texting throughout the whole day. Life was good, and I was totally content. I didn't even mind that the science fair, my least favorite part of school, was coming up. And then I got a text from Joseph. We hadn't even talked since our kiss. Why now? What could he possibly want? Annoyed, I opened his text. "Wanna be science fair buddies?" With a winky face. There was the electricity. Oh no.